from Central Pennsylvania, this is CBS 21 News This Morning.
A very good Monday morning to you, and thanks for waking up with us. I'm Ashley Honey. Here's what's happening in the news today. An alleged abductor in Franklin County has one last chance to take a deal before heading to trial. We're live ahead of his court appearance. Plus, a rare opening convocation for school staff members in Harrisburg as the district gets ready to start the new school year amid a state takeover. And some people in our region will have some cleaning up to do today after strong storms rolled through central PA. For more on that, we'll go ahead and send it on over to meteorologist Steve Knight.
Well, Ashley, this morning we're getting a look at some of those storms that hit last night. Take a look at this video from Michael Rodriguez in Lebanon. The storms there are packed, lots of lightning and rain. We haven't heard of any major storm damage, but there were several reports of downed trees in Lebanon County, and the strong storms also hit Dauphin County, forcing folks at Hershey Park Stadium to cancel the Backstreet Boys concert last night. Concert was initially delayed by the first wave of thunderstorms, which passed through around 7 o'clock. The band finally started playing around 9, but after a few minutes, another wave of storms, they announced they had to stop. Fans needed to evacuate for safety. The concert now being postponed. No new date has been announced as of this morning. Well, things have settled down. It was certainly a hot weekend. 90 on Saturday, 97 yesterday. More temperatures in the 90s here as we start the brand new work week. You notice that activity that was moving from west to east really has just kind of fizzled out. We'll look for an isolated pop-up thunderstorm during the second half of the day today. But the real story is the heat. Look at the heat index today, 100, upper 90s tomorrow and Wednesday before a big break for the second half of the week and into the weekend. So stay hydrated, folks. Hot, humid, and isolated storm today, and we're well into the 90s.
Those strong storms, fire officials say a lightning strike caused an overnight fire in Harrisburg. Crews were called out to a 3-story duplex on Paxton Street around 9:30 last night. We're told there was a fire in the attic and 2 people and a dog were inside the home, but fortunately no one was injured. The Red Cross is now assisting. And no word on what caused a fire in Steelton. A 4-story building on North Front Street caught fire early yesterday morning. Officials say there was heavy fire coming from the 2nd and 3rd floors. Crews were on scene for about 2 hours. We still don't know if anyone was home at the time of the fire. And happening today, a man accused of kidnapping a 4-year-old girl from her Washington Township home is set to appear in court. CBS 21's Joe Ducey live now outside the Franklin County Courthouse in Chambersburg with more. Joe, good morning.
Hey Ashley, good morning. Investigators say today will essentially be the last chance Thomas DeWald has to accept a plea deal from prosecutors. He was arrested back in April. Investigators say he abducted a 4-year-old girl from her home, taped her mouth shut, and locked her in a chest. The girl managed to get away while DeWald left her alone. She was eventually found wandering on the side of the road. She was reunited with her family. DeWald is also accused of breaking into another home with intentions of kidnapping another child, according to investigators. He was eventually arrested at a relative's house he had been staying at. State police say he was from Franklin County but had not lived in the area for several years. His hearing is scheduled to start at 9 o'clock this morning here at the Franklin County Courthouse. Something we'll certainly continue to follow. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Joe, thank you very much. Teachers in Harrisburg are getting ready for the start of classes as the district begins the new school year under a state receivership. Today, the entire teaching staff will return to school for an opening convocation. It's to go over the changes the district and the newly appointed receiver, Dr. Janet Samuels, are implementing. Today's convocation is an all-day event at John Harris. The new school year kicks off next Monday, a week from today. Elsewhere in Harrisburg, a celebration of life is being held today in honor of Bret Michaels' father. The rock star is a Cumberland County native, and his dad, Wallace Sychak, lived in Camp Hill. The ceremony starts at 11 this morning at St. Timothy Lutheran Church on the Carlisle Pike. Sychak was a Navy veteran and will be buried with military honors at Indiantown Gap National Cemetery following the service. All are welcome to attend.
Today for us, Walter, given the ultimate sacrifice, he earns the title of hero.
A beloved Adams County firefighter has been laid to rest. Walter Wogman passed away last week, days after being thrown from a fire truck while answering a call. CBS 21's Karina Chung spoke to people who came out to pay their respects.
Dozens of departments, hundreds of people saying farewell to Walter Wogman.
He didn't do any of this for recognition. He did it because he truly loved people and loved helping his community.
President Timothy Baldwin first met Wagaman when he was 14 years old. It's humor that will be missed at the fire hall.
Tapping the tongs, singing along, just having fun, dancing at the grill. That's who Walt was.
One of the most dedicated individuals I know to his fire department, to his community.
Wagaman was well known throughout the community, engines coming as far as Delaware to pay respects.
If you can look around and see that the support from surrounding areas that are really here to show the memory of Assistant Chief Walter Wagaman.
Firefighters here say he was a mentor to many junior firefighters, someone to look up to in life.
Would always make you laugh. There was, at any time on a call or something like that, he would always make light of a situation. And
the final nod to his service, a Lifeline helicopter hovering above his last ride. Karina Chung, CBS 21 News.
Our thoughts are with all of those who loved him. And today, a funeral is being held for a 2-year-old who died in a daycare fire in Erie. The funeral for Dalvin Packley today comes just 2 days after the other 4 victims, who were all siblings, were laid to rest. Their ages ranged from 8 years old to 9 months old. 3 of the victims were the children of a volunteer firefighter. An adult and 2 boys were able to escape the fire, which broke out at a 24-hour facility August 11th. Fire officials believe the blaze was accidental. And what should be a happy day full of love turned to tragedy after terrorists target a wedding, how many people were killed, and how it's shedding light on an ongoing war in Afghanistan. Plus, a new car show in York, a look at some of those cool vehicles on display.
Well, we are headed back into the 90s this afternoon. I'm going to let you know how long this current heat wave is going to last with my first warning forecast.
You're watching CBS 21 News this morning.
All right, we've got a chance of seeing some isolated thunderstorms pop up once again this afternoon. It's a dry start to the day. First half of the day does look mainly dry, other than a stray sprinkle. Then we'll look for some isolated storms, but it is going to be hot again today. 94 is what I'm calling for our afternoon high. You factor in the humidity, it's going to be feeling more like around 100 on the heat index. Our average high right now is 83. Obviously well above that here as we start the week. There is some relief coming second half of the week and into the weekend, but in the meantime, cranking the AC again today. Those isolated afternoon storms with a high of 94 on the area highways. Quiet ride traffic, okay. 30 corridor looks good through York County. Not seeing any big travel issues or delays. On 81, getting around Carlisle. 34 looks good. Getting into downtown and traffic moving well on the Capitol Beltway. This report is service of LB Smith Ford, Central PA's big Ford store.
Check your freezer. Tyson is recalling one of its chicken products. The USDA says more than 39,000 pounds of this, the company's Weaver brand frozen chicken patty product, could be contaminated with, quote, extraneous materials. Not good. The recall covers the bags with a best if used date of January 31st, 2020. No illnesses or injuries have been reported, but consumers are being urged to either throw out the food or take it back to the store for a refund. An alcoholic beverage line once popular with millennials is now getting into the boozy seltzer water trend. Four Loko is bragging its new hard seltzer is the hardest. It has a 14% alcohol by volume amount, which is nearly 3 times higher than other popular brands like White Claw. Four Loko is known for its line of high-octane malt beverages. They stopped loading those with caffeine too after it was banned in some states. Well, a new auto dial scam is putting millions of smart device owners at risk. It happens when you ask a device like Siri or Alexa to auto dial a company phone number. Scammers, however, create fake customer service numbers and bump them to the top of the search results, often by paying for ads. That means you don't end up talking with the company, but rather a scammer. There are several ways to avoid auto dial scammers, including the old-fashioned way, getting information from an official company's website. And speaking of smart devices, take a look at this brand new bed designed for the ultimate TV binge watching experience. For you Netflix lovers out there, the High Bed is described as a second generation smart bed. It features an HD projector with a 70-inch screen along with a built-in sound system and speakers. It also has dimmable lighting, blackout curtains, and of course built-in Wi-Fi. The bed can also monitor your movement with the ability to adjust temperature according to preference. When it comes out next year, it will retail for at least $13,000. It's a pretty penny. Well, the White House pushes back against recession concerns in the U.S. economy. How what President Trump says should help ease fears is what Democrats say is actually causing the mess on Wall Street to begin with. ISIS has claimed responsibility for a fatal explosion during a wedding in Kabul. More than 60 people were killed and 200 others injured after a bomber strapped with an explosive vest detonated during the reception. The bombing comes as the Taliban, who condemned the attack, is trying to reach an elusive agreement with the Trump administration to end the war in Afghanistan.
We're there for one reason. We don't want that to be a laboratory. Okay? It can't be a laboratory for terror.
To do it right, we need to make sure we get the basic assurances about counterterrorism that we need, and that the Afghan government is on the table so that there's a formula for stability.
The conflict in Afghanistan is America's longest war. It began just after the attacks on 9/11. Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement was back on the streets this weekend, but it was a stark difference of what we've been seeing. An estimated 1.7 million people, a quarter of the territory's population, took part in a peaceful march yesterday. It was a change from some of the past 2 months when violence erupted between protesters and police.
Is it better to use violence or is it better to use peace?
I believe peace is the best way.
Basically, we should say it is peace.
I would prefer peace, but seems peaceful protest is not doing any good.
Early June, a demand for the government to revoke a hated extradition bill exploded into calls for greater democratic reform. Here at home, at least 13 people have been arrested after far-right protesters clashed with anti-fascist demonstrators. Portland, Oregon was the ground zero for protests on Saturday. Protesters marched through the city's waterfront park, mostly kept apart by heavy police presence. Officers seized metal poles, bear spray, and other weapons, closing bridges and streets. 6 minor injuries were reported. President Trump is trying to reassure Americans that the U.S. will not go into another recession after a roller coaster week on Wall Street. Independent economists have been less optimistic after the bond market flashed a signal that is normally interpreted as a sign a recession is on the horizon. Democrats pin the blame on the president's trade war with China.
We need to curb some of the abuses on the Chinese side, but the trade war is leading the global economy in the wrong direction.
President Trump insists the U.S. economy is poised for growth after the trade deals are done. But after months of negotiations between China and the U.S., there is no trade deal in sight.
And now, CBS 21 News First Warning Weather with meteorologist Steve Knight.
Well, not only some gusty storms yesterday, but it was hot. We got all the way to 97. We got to 90 on Saturday, and after we get into the 90s today, it's officially going to be a heat wave, and we're going to stay in the mid to low 90s here first half of the week. Average high now is 83, so we're going to be well above average. Some kids, of course, heading back to school this week. At least the first half of the week is going to be very hot and humid, and we'll trend back down into the 80s with a big break in the humidity coming by the weekend. In the meantime, really steamy. These shower storms that we're moving across overnight, you can see they're just kind of fizzling out as they get to the mountains. And I think we're going to start the day nice and dry, and then we'll watch out for an isolated storm later on this afternoon. So heat wave, highs in the 90s through Wednesday, staying very muggy. Some relief by the weekend. I like to say this on Monday mornings. It's never too early, of course, to start thinking about the weekend, especially this week, because weather's going to be a lot better for us. It's going to be hot, sticky here first half of the week. Eventually, this front pushing in from the west is going to be the one that's going to cool us down, but dangerously hot today. You combine the humidity with the actual air temperature, it's going to be feeling like around 100. with the heat index. 98 tomorrow, Wednesday. Of course, fall practice in full swing for all the high school athletes. Make sure those kids drinking plenty of water, staying hydrated, frequent breaks today, coaches, right through Wednesday. And then it's going to get a lot cooler and a lot better. In fact, just in time for the first Friday night wave of games for high school football. It looks like it's going to be a lot cooler and a lot less humid, thankfully. All right, so there's those pop-up storms late this afternoon, this evening. Very isolated in nature. I don't think they'll be as widespread as the ones we saw yesterday. Same deal tomorrow, isolated pop-up storm. Each day this week through Thursday, we're going to have chances for some thunderstorms bubbling up in the afternoon. About a 30% chance today that you see that pop-up shower or storm in your backyard. The severe threat Storm Prediction Center has that all off to the east, and it's only a 1 on a scale of 1 to 5, but you know, I'm still concerned that we could have frequent thunder, lightning with any storms that pop up this afternoon and some isolated heavy downpours that could lead to ponding on roads or even some flash flooding in some of our low-lying areas. So severe threat not very high. We just can't let our guard completely down. In terms of the moisture in the air, the dew point into the 70s today. And then look what happens into the 60s overnight. Then by tomorrow, back into the 70s again. So this oppressive humidity not going anywhere till the second half of this week. So hot, humid. Couple of isolated pop-up storms today, 94 with a heat index more like 100. Here's the rest of your first warning, 7-day forecast. So it's a heat wave through Wednesday, then eventually the cold front sliding through Thursday. Cools us off in time for the weekend. A lot of sunshine. It's going to be less humid, but in the meantime, we're stuck in the muck with a heat wave through midweek.
Thank you, Steve. Following her dreams from the minute she was born. How this week's Women at Work is building a beauty empire right here in Central PA.
Well, our major routes look good. Monday morning commute easing back into it. We've got some dry roads out there. Visibility seems to be pretty good. We haven't seen too much patchy fog develop here this morning. 15. That looks good getting in and around Gettysburg. No major issues there. Out through the Lebanon Valley. And the ongoing construction work around that sinkhole on 422. Other than that, things are quiet. This report is service of LB Smith Ford, Central PA's big Ford store.
As the opioid epidemic rages on across the country and state, a community in Lancaster County is coming together to help children who've lost parents to addiction. The annual Nicole Conway Volleyball Tournament was held in Lancaster on Saturday. It brought in $12,000, which will now go into a trust fund to help 3 select children.
You know, it's difficult for everybody, but, you know, all these people are in the same boat. They're all fighting it, you know. It's hard for the families. It's nice to know that you have support.
This is the 7th year for the tournament. Organizers say it not only helps support the families, but also raises awareness about recovery. Well, a 25-year-old woman in our region is building an empire. She started her cosmetology career as a teenager and continues to grow her resume, talent, and business. CBS 21's Jasmine Brooks shares her story in this week's Women at Work.
Women at Work, sponsored by Central Penn College.
Honestly, one random day on Craigslist, I was looking for a piece of salon furniture and I found this property.
It wasn't exactly what Agnes George was planning on investing in at just 25 years old, but this go-getter couldn't pass up the opportunity.
The name of my salon is 2dbbc Spa and Hair Studio. This is actually the first out of 3 locations.
Her 3-story salon and barbershop in Harrisburg offers everything from hair services to skincare. And when Agnes isn't styling clients,
I'm a school supervisor at Divine Crown Academy of Cosmetology and Barber and Beauty Academy.
She's also a mom to 1-year-old Kaya.
Yes, I'm a fiance and a new mom to like the most beautiful little girl.
Bringing her daughter to work, reminiscent of her childhood.
She was born in a beauty salon. I mean, she was right there. I was actually working up to the minute I went into labor with her, and the next day she was born, and probably within 3 weeks she was probably on my hip or somewhere around the salons.
I started my career at the age of 16 being a cosmetologist, and I actually received my cosmetology apprenticeship under my mom.
I see her doing phenomenal things. She is just moving and shaking this whole industry. She has surpassed me in leaps and bounds.
One thing my mom always instilled in me is that sky is the limit and nothing is impossible unless you make it impossible, and that if you just follow God, He will direct your path, and that everything else will just fall into place.
With this week's Women at Work, I'm Jasmine Brooks.
Ah, yes, more than 2,000 hot rods, classics, muscle cars, and trucks rolled through York this weekend. The Good Guys Great American Nationals 3-day festival is wrapped up at the Expo Center last night. Organizers tell us the cars give people a cool reason to get together.
They deeply connect people. So there's a lot of stories and a lot of history with these cars. Maybe they've been passed down in families, or they've had a car since they were in high school and they've reconnected. So there's just a lot of story and history.
This was the first year for the event, and if you missed it this time, organizers tell us they do plan on coming back in 2020. Well, keeping an eye on entertainment, it was a busy weekend at the box office with several new films challenging the big movies of late summer. Good Boys took the top spot. The film about 3 preteens preparing for their first kissing party debuted with $21 million. Looks pretty cute. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw lost the top spot, but $14 million gave the action spinoff second place and $134 million domestic. And The Lion King holding strong in third place, $11.9 million gave the blockbuster a domestic total of $496 million. I would still go see it again. Well, a man will stand trial this week for allegedly using lethal force to end an argument over a parking spot. Why experts say it will be difficult to find jurors to hear the case. Plus, severe storms in Pennsylvania leave several people injured. What police say children were doing outside when a tree toppled over. And Joe.
Investigators say time is running out for an alleged kidnapper to cut a deal with prosecutors. We've got details coming up.
It's a quiet, serene morning in central PA, but last night was anything but that. Strong storms roll through the area, bringing rain, wind, and lots of lightning. This video sent in to us from West Smith in Lebanon.
Yeah, speaking of lightning, Ashley, take a look at this picture.
Wow.
Lightning bolt in Reedsville. This picture sent in from Nicole Swanger. Here are some beautiful shots. Oh, this is awesome. This is a lightning strike over a double rainbow in Chambersburg.
Stunning.
Thank you so much, Amy Sanders, for sending those to us. Ed Russo, our meteorologist, tweeted that out last night, and those pictures went viral. That's an amazing picture.
Love that shot.
You can capture that lightning over the double rainbow. While the storms can make for some beautiful images from afar, we're reminded again of just how dangerous they can be.
Yeah, 9 people, including several young children, were injured after a tree fell on them while they were swimming underneath a tent at a Bucks County swim club yesterday afternoon. Officials say lightning hit the tree, causing it to topple over onto the tent.
I was running away from the rain. All of a sudden, I looked to the right, and a tree's fallen, and there's a lot of branches were falling at first. But when the tree fell, everybody started screaming. I couldn't look because it was really heavy rain.
Authorities say lifeguards at the pool jumped into action, and they quickly removed the branches and pulled everyone to safety. Thank goodness. And of course, a lot of questions surrounding this story, like why the pool was even open with thunder and lightning to begin with. But CBS This Morning is on it. They will have a crew live in Feasterville this morning. That report coming up just after 7 a.m.
Yeah, the other side of the state also hit with severe weather. 2 buildings in Allegheny County collapsed after a storm tore through an 8-block radius Saturday night. The owner of one of those buildings says they were in the process of renovating it.
I'm shocked. I mean, I'm totally shocked. My wife said maybe it's a sign from God that I should just sell it.
Well, the National Weather Service there attributed the damage to a microburst. That's some very strong downforce winds that, they can be as strong as a weak tornado.
And we're not out of these summer thunderstorms just yet, so if you haven't done so already, be sure to download the CBS 21 weather app. Our weather team is constantly preparing you for the possibility of severe weather, and you can get the weather alerts sent straight to your phone. It's free. It's so easy to use. All you have to do is search CBS 21 WX in the App Store. And Steve, this morning, we're not dealing so much with these thunderstorms that may have kept a lot of people up last night, but we are dealing with the heat.
Yeah, and we're talking heat wave. We got to 90 on Saturday, Ashley, 97 yesterday. I think we're going to be back into the mid-90s today with a heat index near 100. Now, you can see, overnight I've been tracking these showers as they've been working from west to east across PA up toward Erie. They had a few thunderstorms overnight. You can see all of this just kind of fizzling out as it heads toward the mountains. So first half of the day looks dry for us. Can't rule out an isolated pop-up storm later on this afternoon, some of which again could contain thunder, lightning, and even an isolated downpour. Only about a 30% chance of seeing a pop-up storm later on today, but it's the heat that's really the bigger story. Heat index near 100 today, upper 90s Tuesday, Wednesday, before finally some relief for the second half of the week. But in the meantime, it's going to stay hazy, hot, humid, and isolated storm today with a high all the way up to 94.
Today, an alleged abductor in Franklin County will have one last chance to cut a deal with prosecutors. Thomas DeWald is accused of kidnapping a 4-year-old girl from her Washington Township home back in April. CBS 21's Joe Ducey live now outside the Franklin County Courthouse, where DeWald will appear in court later this morning. Joe, good morning.
Yeah, Ashley, that's right. Good morning. This all stems from a string of incidents that had this Franklin County community rattled back in April. Investigators say Thomas DeWald abducted a 4-year-old girl from her home, taped her mouth shut, unlocked her in a chest. There was a massive manhunt for the girl. She did manage to get away while DeWald left her alone. She was eventually found wandering on the side of the road and reunited with her family. DeWald is also accused of breaking into another home with intentions of kidnapping another child, according to investigators. He was eventually arrested at a relative's house he had been staying at. State police say he was from Franklin County but had not lived in the area for years. And again, Ashley, like you said, essentially today will be his last chance to cut a deal with prosecutors. The hearing will get started here at the Franklin County Courthouse at 9 o'clock. For now, reporting live in Franklin County, Joe Ducey, CBS 21 News.
A story we'll be following very closely. Thank you, Joe. Well, jury selection begins today for a man accused of fatally shooting an unarmed man outside of a Florida convenience store. The shooting made national headlines last year because it was all over a parking spot. Jurors will decide if Michael Drecka was justifiably threatened when he fatally shot Marquise McLaughlin. Jurors will be shown surveillance video of the shooting, including a slow motion version of the prosecution says McLaughlin was retreating.
With that slow motion, you can see his hand movement, and he is motioning for Mr. McLaughlin to move. The human brain doesn't perceive things in slow motion, only real time.
Attorneys expect finding a jury could be difficult after the high-profile case sparked debate over Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Well, fears of a recession are at a new high after a tumultuous week on Wall Street, but the White House says the economy is strong and there's nothing to worry about. CBS News correspondent Laura Podesta has the latest.
President Trump and his economic team believe the U.S. economy is going to continue to grow.
We're doing tremendously well. Our consumers are rich. I gave a tremendous tax cut, and they're loaded up with money.
But last week's sell-off on Wall Street and a warning from the bond market have investors concerned a recession is on the horizon. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro sees a different picture.
What I'm seeing, looking at all the macro tea leaves, is a very strong Trump economy and bullish stock market through 2020 and beyond.
While leaving his New Jersey golf club on Sunday, President Trump said stalled negotiations with China should be blamed for any slowdown.
I mean, if I wanted to make a bad deal and settle on China, the market would go up, but it wouldn't be the right thing to do. I'm just not ready to make a deal yet. China would like to make a deal. I'm not ready.
I suspect very much that China has a longer attention span than Donald Trump has.
Democratic presidential candidates took aim at the president's trade war while campaigning in New Hampshire.
First thing to do is stop everything Trump has done.
He has been using our farmers and our workers like poker chips at one of his bankrupt casinos.
The White House says if deputy-level meetings go well this week, Chinese negotiators may come back to the U.S. for another round of talks. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
The FBI says 2 would-be mass shooters are now in custody. How authorities were able to track down the men and foil the plots, and why they say what they were caught doing is not uncommon. Plus, back to the classroom and back to a normal early rising sleep schedule, some of the challenges that come along with the typical school hours.
It's a warm, steamy start, upper 60s in most locations. I'm going to let you know when this latest heat wave is going to break with my first warning forecast.
You're watching CBS 21 News this morning.
Well, some isolated storms will be popping up later on this afternoon. They won't be as widespread as the ones that we saw yesterday, but could contain some frequent lightning and heavy downpours. About a 30% chance of seeing that isolated storm this afternoon and into the early evening hours. So 94 today, and we talked about this earlier. As muggy as it is, as humid as it is, it's going to be feeling more like around 100 with the heat index. 92 tomorrow and Wednesday before we finally get some relief. Second half of the week, not only will it be cooler, but it'll be less humid. But in the meantime, we're dealing with the high heat, high humidity once again today. A couple of isolated storms with a high near 94 on the area highways. It looks good. 83, just some real minor delays right now approaching New York split. Quiet out toward the Hershey area. Everything moving pretty well. 283 between Harrisburg and Lancaster, and that Route 30 corridor is also nice and quiet. This traffic report is service to the all-new Turner Chevy in Harrisburg.
Law enforcement is on high alert for copycat mass shooters in the wake of recent tragedies. Over the weekend, 2 men in separate incidents were arrested on suspicion of plotting attacks. One of those suspects, a self-described white nationalist who took part in the deadly protest in Charlottesville, Virginia. Authorities say a social media post shows him shooting a semi-automatic rifle and talking about killing Jews in Youngstown, Ohio.
That kicked off a very intense investigation.
Police seized semi-automatic weapons, dozens of rounds of ammunition, and bulletproof armor. An FBI study shows 85% of active shooters brag online about their potential plans. A crowd of strangers says goodbye to an El Paso shooting victim after her longtime companion said he felt alone after her passing. Antonia Bosco was seen kneeling and crying at Maggie Records' casket Saturday. She was a mother, a grandmother, and his wife for 22 years.
Cry with her. I would be sad. She loved my life.
Just heartbreaking. Bosco made international headlines after he told reporters he had almost no family members left. More than 3,000 showed up to a memorial Friday night and hundreds to the funeral on Saturday. Record was killed by a gunman who opened fire in a Texas Walmart earlier this month. Well, textbooks, notebooks, and a pencil box, those are just some of the things that may be inside your child's backpack this school year, but carrying all that weight can actually hurt them. We'll take a look at some ways to keep your child pain-free.
You're watching CBS 21 News this morning.
It's that time again. Our Before the Bell coverage continues as we examine the pros and cons of flip-flopping school start times for older and younger students. Research shows students may benefit, but as CBS 21's Michael Gorsinger found out, making a major move isn't always easy.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, the ringing alarm clock. But for teens getting ready for school, the early bird might not be getting the worm.
Research shows that teenagers need more sleep. They don't get enough sleep.
In fact, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine says 68% of high schoolers get 7 hours of sleep or less each night.
The older you get, the less sleep you generally need.
But kids ranging from 13 to 18 years old should still be getting 8 to 10 hours a night. One of the biggest hurdles, early start times at school.
This is how it's always been, and so it must be right.
Not so. Sleep experts like Dr. George Robinson with WellSpan recommend high schools start the day no earlier than 8:30 a.m. A later time would allow teens to go to bed later, which is naturally what their bodies demand. This is an issue being tossed around for years despite the research. Studies show that only 17% of districts have even considered the notion. So many factors, like busing, go into the decision making.
It has an impact on sports, athletics. It has an impact on a number of other things.
A few years ago, the Eastern York School District toyed with the idea of flip-flopping high school and elementary school start times, deciding against the change.
It all has to do with the culture that you have.
Until it becomes more universal in people considering it, it's not going to happen.
For today's Before the Bell, Michael Gorsinger, CBS 21 News.
Oh, that dreaded sound. Well, sleep or lack thereof isn't the only issue students deal with every year. A lot of children also deal with back pain because of backpacks. Orthopedic experts say the first thing that can help is making sure your child uses both straps. How the backpack is packed can also cause pain. Children should carry no more than 10 or 20% of their body weight, and the heaviest things like books should of course be closest to the back. Lighter items go up in the front.
If you look here, the bottom of the bag is right at the waist level. You don't want it sagging down. Again, you don't want it too high up because it's going to pitch him forward a little bit more.
Doctors say if your child does develop back pain, have them rest, stretch, and take some ibuprofen. If it does last, be sure to go to the doctor. Well, businesses in York are doing their part to make sure students have the best first day of school they can. That's why 10 salons and barbershops offered free back-to-school haircuts yesterday. Barbers at Higher Design on Queen Street say it's all about helping out in the community and boosting self-esteem as students get ready to hit the books.
Not everybody can maybe afford a haircut. Maybe they got single parents and stuff that's struggling to provide for them. So give them confidence for all their school events and all that.
I love it. The businesses also donated backpacks and school supplies they had been collecting for about a month. And we are in week 2 of our 2-week Before the Bell series. CBS 21 is committed to getting you and your child ready for the new school year. Look for all of our back-to-school stories here on CBS 21 News this morning and on CBS 21 News at 5:30.
And now, CBS 21 News First Warning Weather with meteorologist Steve Knight.
It was just really loud and everything was part of the tree. Lights were flickering. It was very scary and it was just loud noises. It was crazy.
Well, we're hearing just how intense the storms were as they ripped through our region last night. Lebanon hit pretty hard. Winds ripped the roof off a shed, causing it to go flying and land on a KFC employee's car. There were other reports of minor damage throughout Lebanon County, including down trees and wires. And also in Hershey, they had strong storms go through. They initially delayed the Backstreet Boys concert. Then they went on stage around 9. Then another wave of storms came through and they wound up having to evacuate the stands. So tough night for Hershey concert goers last night. It was hot too yesterday. We got all the way to 97, 90 on Saturday. When we get into the 90s today, it's officially going to become a heat wave and it's going to extend itself through Wednesday. You notice our future temperatures here. We'll get back down into the 80s for the weekend and heading into next week. But I know some kids starting to head back to school this week. And it is going to be hot and humid for back to school, at least through Wednesday. Now, notice first warning radar here. Some showers I've been watching here overnight and into the early part of the day. A lot of that fizzling out. You may just deal with a pop-up sprinkle or two in Lancaster County here this morning. But our next weather maker, this ridge of high pressure that's going to keep the heat on through midweek. So highs in the 90s. It stays muggy. We will get some relief in here. Eventually, a cold front late Thursday into Friday will not only knock down the temperature, but knock down the humidity. So a heat index today is going to be near 100. That's when you combine the actual temperature with the humidity. Then eventually, this cooler, drier air is going to work in from the west. And that'll be our saving grace as we head toward the weekend. But in the meantime, look at that heat index today, right around 100, upper 90s. Tomorrow and Wednesday, fall sports practices in full swing. For all the high school athletes, make sure those athletes are drinking lots of water, taking some breaks throughout the practices today, Coach, as well. Look for those pop-up shower storms later on today. I don't think they're going to be as widespread as the ones that we saw yesterday, but keeping them in the forecast, about a 30% chance that you see that pop-up storm. And then again tomorrow during the afternoon, we'll look for that isolated storm chance to pop up kind of with that heating of the day. As I mentioned, about a 30% chance, mainly dry here through lunchtime. You may just see a sprinkle or two. But then we have a better chance of seeing some of those thunderstorms. Now, the severe threat from the Storm Prediction Center is off to the east today, but that doesn't mean we see a thunderstorm today. It could include some frequent lightning like we saw last night and also some isolated heavy downpours. Dew points, the measure of moisture in the air, into the 70s today. They get back down to the 60s overnight and then back into the 70s tomorrow. So that is oppressive humidity. It's the same humid air mass that we felt during the weekend. So staying hot, staying humid. Couple of isolated storms this afternoon up to 94. Here's the rest of your first warning 7-day forecast. The first half of this week, pretty brutal with the heat, humidity, and then we get some relief. Cold front coming through on Thursday, just in time for the weekend. It is not only going to be less humid, but it's going to be sunny and feeling pretty nice for the upcoming weekend.
Ready for that cool down. Thank you, Steve. T-minus 1 week until students in Harrisburg return to school, and they will be met with a lot of changes. How teachers will get briefed on the adjustments that come along with a state receivership. Plus this.
I'm Anthony Mason. Coming up, what Iowa voters are thinking when they check out presidential candidates at the state fair. Our Series 3 meals coming up on CBS This Morning.
A final check of our top stories. Today, a man accused of kidnapping a 4-year-old girl in Franklin County is set to appear in court. Prosecutors say it will be Thomas DeWald's last chance to accept a plea deal. He was arrested in April, days after he allegedly kidnapped a girl in Washington Township, taped her mouth shut, and locked her in a chest. She was able to get away. DeWald was arrested after allegedly attempting to kidnap another child. Teachers in Harrisburg are getting ready for the start of classes as the district begins the new school year under a state receivership. Today, the entire teaching staff will return to school for an opening convocation. It's to go over the changes the district and the newly appointed receiver, Dr. Janet Samuels, are implementing. Today's convocation is an all-day event at John Harris. The new school year kicks off next Monday, a week from today. And a celebration of life is being held today in honor of Bret Michaels' father. The rock star is a Cumberland County native, and his dad, Wallace Sychak, lived in Camp Hill. The ceremony starts at 11 this morning at St. Timothy Lutheran Church on the Carlisle Pike. Sychak was a Navy veteran and will be buried with military honors at Indiantown Gap National Cemetery following the service. A U.S. envoy negotiating with the Taliban to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan says the process needs to be accelerated. The call comes after a suicide bomber wearing an explosive vest killed more than 60 people at a wedding in Kabul late Saturday. A local affiliate of the Islamic State claimed responsibility for the terror attack. And President Trump is back in Washington after spending 10 days at his New Jersey golf club. Before leaving, he pushed back on the risks of a recession facing the U.S. economy, saying the 2017 tax cuts have made consumers rich. Democrats say the president's policies are not working, and continuing the trade war with China is not the way forward.
All right, so heat wave, Ashley, we were in the 90s over the weekend. That's going to continue here for the first half of this week. We will watch out for an isolated storm to pop up this afternoon. You can see that there on our future radar, but they won't be as widespread as the storms that we saw yesterday. Perhaps a bigger story, the heat. Not only are we going to be in the mid-90s, but factor in the high humidity. Heat index today around 100, upper 90s tomorrow and Wednesday, but you'll also take a look at the muggy meter. See that relief by the end of the week?
So ready for
That's what we're looking for. But the first half of this week, particularly through Wednesday, pretty ugly in terms of the heat and humidity. Each day offering up that chance for afternoon thunderstorms. While they don't look like they want to be severe, can't rule out downpours, thunder, lightning, that type of thing. Then a lot less humid and some better weather for the second half of the weekend into the weekend. Area highways are quiet. We're not seeing any big travel delays out there this morning on any of your interstates. Everything moving pretty well. 81, 83, 30 corridor also looks good. Light to light in York. This report is service of the all-new Turner Chevy in Harrisburg.
So making sure everyone's staying cool and staying hydrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be a hot couple of days. CBS This Morning coming up next. We'll go ahead and leave you with a live look into Studio 57 where they're all getting ready. Have a wonderful Monday.